Adanna Okafor stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her Gangnam penthouse, watching Seoul's neon lights blur through her tears. The city that had promised her everything had given her nothing but pain. 3 years. 3 years of trying to be the perfect wife, the obedient daughter-in-law, the invisible woman who smiled through every insult and swallowed every disappointment. The jollof rice sat cold on the stove behind her. She'd cooked it hoping the familiar aroma of home would comfort her, but it only reminded her how far she was from Lagos, from her mother's laughter, from the woman she used to be. Her phone buzzed again. Her mother, Chioma, calling for the 3rd time that evening. Adanna let it ring. She couldn't bear to lie again, to pretend that her marriage to Choi Miho wasn't slowly killing her from the inside. She touched the carved wooden bangle on her wrist, the one her grandmother had given her before she died. Omomi, her grandmother had said in Yoruba, her weathered hands clasping Adanna's young ones, the baobab tree bends in the storm but never breaks. Your roots are deeper than any wind. Remember that when the world tries to tear you down. Adanna had been 17 then, brilliant and hungry for the world. Now, at 28, she wondered if her grandmother had known she would need those words to survive. The front door opened. Miho walked in at 11:30, reeking of perfume that wasn't hers. He didn't even look at her as he dropped his briefcase on the marble counter. Your mother called again, Adanna said, her voice carefully neutral. She wants us for dinner on Sunday. Tell her I'm busy. Miho loosened his tie, still not meeting her eyes. She's your mother, Miho. And she wants to discuss the air situation again. He finally turned to her, his handsome face twisted with contempt. Then maybe you should quit that ridiculous job and focus on what actually matters. 3 years, Adanna. 3 years and nothing to show for it. The words hit her like a slap. My ridiculous job is why we can afford this penthouse. My company's security software is in 20 countries. And I told you, I'm not quitting my career to become some what? A proper wife? Miho stepped closer, his voice rising. That's exactly what you should be. But you're too selfish, too stubborn, too. Don't. Adanna's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Too African, Miho said anyway, his lip curling. My mother was right about you from the beginning. You don't belong here. You never did. He grabbed his overnight bag from the closet. I'm staying at the office tonight. Don't wait up. The door slammed behind him. Adanna stood frozen in the empty apartment, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something. Instead, she walked to her home office and sat at her computer, letting the familiar glow of code and data calm her racing heart. This was her sanctuary, the place where she was still brilliant, still valued, still herself. But sleep wouldn't come. At 3 in the morning, she found herself staring at Miho's laptop, the one he'd carelessly left on the dining table. He never let her touch it. The fact that he'd forgotten it tonight felt like fate. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She shouldn't. This was wrong. But something in her gut, some instinct honed by 3 years of gaslighting and neglect, told her to look. The laptop wasn't even password protected. Arrogant bastard. The first email she opened made her stomach drop. It was from Neka, her half-sister from her father's second marriage in Seoul. The girl she'd helped get a job, who she'd invited to family dinners, who she'd trusted. I can't stop thinking about last night. Your touch, your promises. I know it's complicated with her, but your mother says we just need to be patient. Soon, Appa, we'll be together properly. I love you. Adanna's hand shook so badly she almost couldn't scroll. But she did. Email after email, text after text, photos that made her want to vomit. Miho and Neka at hotels. Miho and Neka at his mother's private villa. Miho and Neka in positions that left no doubt about what they'd been doing. Then she found the emails from Park Sun-hee, her monster of a mother-in-law. The fertility clinic confirmed it. 8 weeks. Everything is proceeding according to plan. Once we have proof of her infertility, we can move forward with the divorce. Nneka understands what it means to be a proper Choi wife. This African woman was a mistake from the beginning. Adanna stopped breathing. She clicked on an attachment. Divorce papers. Already drafted, already signed by Miho. The terms were devastating. She would get nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, and a non-compete clause that would bar her from working in Seoul for 5 years. They would frame it as her abandoning the marriage. Her reputation would be destroyed. And there was more. Medical records showing that Miho was infertile, had been since a childhood illness. The baby Nneka was carrying couldn't be his. But they didn't care. They would claim it was, legitimize it, use it to erase Adanna from the Choi family history like she'd never existed. We thought she would be useful, Sunhee had written to the family lawyer. Her technology skills, her international connections. But she's too proud, too independent. She refuses to know her place. Nneka will be much more manageable. And her mixed heritage will be easier to explain to the board than that black woman my husband insisted on accepting. The words blurred as tears streamed down Adanna's face. She'd known Sunhee hated her. But this level of calculation, this conspiracy to destroy her completely, was breathtaking in its cruelty. She sat there for hours, reading every document, downloading every file to an encrypted drive. By the time dawn broke over Seoul, Adanna Okafor had died. In her place sat someone harder, colder, someone who finally understood that mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. She called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Then she opened her laptop and began to dig. If they wanted to play dirty, she would bury them in mud. By noon, she'd found the first cracks in Park Sunhee's perfect facade. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Money flowing out of Choi Industries and into Sunhee's private holdings. $63 million over 8 years. The woman had been systematically robbing her own family's company. Adanna kept digging. She found proof of falsified reports to shareholders, of affairs Sunhee had conducted while maintaining her image as the perfect matriarch, of bribes paid to board members to maintain her power. It was a treasure trove of criminal activity, and Sunhee had been sloppy. Arrogance made people careless. But Adanna needed more than evidence. She needed an ally with power. She thought of Choi Dae-young, the patriarch, Miho's father. He'd been kind to her at the wedding, one of the few members of the family who hadn't looked at her like she was a stain on their precious bloodline. He'd given her a jade and gold hairpin, a family heirloom. "You have intelligent eyes," he'd said. "My company needs intelligence more than it needs tradition." They'd barely spoken since. Dae-young lived separately from Sunhee, had for 15 years according to company gossip. Their marriage was a business arrangement that had long since soured. But he still controlled 60% of the company's voting shares. If Adanna could convince him to act, she could destroy Sunhee's entire conspiracy. It was a desperate gamble. But desperation was all she had left. She spent the next 3 days building her case, assembling evidence, creating presentations that even the most skeptical board member couldn't dismiss. Then she sent an encrypted message to Dae-young's private secretary, requesting a meeting. She included one sentence: "I have information the chairman needs to see. And something that belongs to him." The response came within an hour. Tuesday. 3 p.m. Serenity Tea House. "Come alone." Miho came home that weekend, all smiles and false affection. "I'm sorry about the other night," he said, trying to kiss her cheek. "Work stress. You know how it is." Adanna smiled back, playing the role she'd perfected. "Of course. I understand." She didn't tell him she'd seen everything. She didn't scream or cry or rage. She simply waited. Because the baobab tree didn't announce its strength. It simply refused to fall. The Serenity Tea House was tucked away in Buckshin, traditional and private. Adanna arrived early, wearing a conservative navy suit and minimal makeup. She'd pulled her natural hair into a tight bun. Nothing that could be used as ammunition against her. Choi Dae-young arrived exactly on time, his silver hair immaculate, his presence commanding despite his 65 years. He sat across from her, his sharp eyes assessing. Adanna placed the jade hairpin on the table between them. "That belonged to my mother," Dae-young said quietly. "I gave it to you as a wedding gift." "Why return it?" "Because I'm about to ask you for something that requires me to prove I understand value," Adanna replied. Her heart was pounding, but her voice stayed steady. "And respect. Go on." She slid a USB drive across the table. "Your son is having an affair with my half-sister. She's pregnant. Your wife orchestrated the entire thing as part of a plan to divorce me and install Neka as the new Choi wife." Dae-young's expression didn't change. "I see. There's more. Your wife has been embezzling from Choi Industries for 8 years. $63 million, hidden in offshore accounts. She's also falsified shareholder reports, committed securities fraud, and accepted bribes to maintain her board position." Now Dae-young's eyebrows rose. He picked up the drive. "How did you obtain this information?" "I'm a cybersecurity architect. Your company's firewalls are adequate. They're not impenetrable." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You hacked Choi Industries. I protected my interests. Now I'm offering you the same opportunity." Dae-young was silent for a long moment, studying her. "What do you want?" "3 things. First, my company stays mine, fully independent, no interference from Choi Industries or the family. Second, a divorce from Miho with a fair settlement and my reputation intact. Third," Adanna leaned forward, her eyes burning with controlled fury. "I want your wife destroyed. Publicly. Legally. Completely. I want her to feel exactly what she tried to do to me. That's not a small request. Neither is what I'm giving you. Without this evidence, she would have bled your company dry while you were none the wiser. She would have installed a grandson who isn't even your biological heir. She would have one." Dae-young examined the drive carefully. "You could have taken this to the media. Destroyed the entire family. Why come to me?" "Because I'm not interested in destruction for its own sake. I'm interested in justice. Your company deserves better than a thief at its helm. Your family deserves better than a manipulator controlling its future. And I deserve better than to be erased like I never mattered." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Dae-young spoke. "You remind me of someone. My mother. She was the first woman to become a provincial governor in Jeju Island. Everyone underestimated her. They all learned better. Then you know what I'm capable of. I'll need 3 months to build an airtight case. Can you wait?" "I've waited 3 years. 3 more months won't kill me." Dae-young extended his hand across the table. Adanna shook it, his grip firm and warm. "One more thing," he said as she stood to leave. "Keep that hairpin. You've earned it. If you're enjoying this story of revenge and redemption, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends." The next 3 months were the longest of Adanna's life. She maintained her facade at home, playing the dutiful wife while Miho grew bolder in his disrespect. He stopped bothering to hide his late nights. Sunhee became openly hostile, making snide comments about Adanna's failure to produce an heir. At a family dinner, Sunhee looked at her with undisguised contempt and said in Korean, "Perhaps if you spent less time playing with computers and more time taking care of your health, you wouldn't have these difficulties." Adanna smiled and replied in flawless Korean, "Perhaps if this family valued intelligence over obedience, you'd understand that I'm exactly where I need to be." The table went silent. Miho kicked her under the table. But Dae-young, sitting at the head, had the smallest smile on his face. Behind the scenes, Adanna and Dae-young worked in secret. They met in secure locations, she provided forensic evidence, he hired private investigators. They documented everything, Sunhee's affairs, her financial crimes, the conspiracy with Neka and Miho. They built a case so comprehensive that even the most corrupt lawyer couldn't defend against it. During this time, Adanna video called her mother more regularly. She needed to hear Chioma's voice, to remember who she was beneath all the pain. Ada M., you sound different, Chioma said one evening, her warm face filling the screen. Behind her, Adanna could see their family home in Lagos, could hear the familiar sounds of traffic and life. Stronger. I remembered what grandmother taught me, Mama. The baobab never breaks. What are you planning, my daughter? Adanna hesitated. I can't tell you yet. But soon, everyone will know that Adanna Okafor is not someone to underestimate. Chioma's eyes filled with tears. Your grandmother is smiling in heaven. I know it. The charity gala was the turning point. It was a glittering affair at the Shilla Hotel, filled with Seoul's elite. Sunhee arrived like a queen, Nneka clinging to her arm like a prize. Nneka wore a pale pink dress that showed off her growing belly. Sunhee made sure everyone saw it. She's like a daughter to me, Sunhee announced to a circle of society matrons. So much more suited to our family than, she didn't finish, but her eyes found Adanna across the room. Adanna had spent hours choosing her outfit for this night. She wore a custom gown that made her breath catch when she first saw it, a Korean hanbok-inspired silhouette in bold Nigerian Ankara print, deep blues, and golds that made her dark skin glow like polished mahogany. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, woven with gold thread. She wore her grandmother's bangle and the jade hairpin. When she walked into the ballroom, conversation stopped. People stared, some in shock, others in admiration. She'd spent 3 years trying to shrink herself, to fit into their narrow definition of acceptable. Tonight, she took up space. Tonight, she was magnificent. Sunhee's face twisted with rage. But Dae-young, watching from his table, raised his glass to Adanna in a subtle salute. Nneka tried to approach her near the end of the evening. Uni, please, can we talk? Adanna turned to her, taking in the fake tears, the manipulative quiver of her lip. We have nothing to discuss. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. It just happened, and mother son he said. Stop. Adanna's voice was ice. You made your choices. You knew exactly what you were doing when you crawled into my husband's bed. You knew when you conspired with his mother to destroy me. Don't insult me with fake remorse now. Please, I'm pregnant, I'm scared. Then you should have thought of that before you betrayed your own blood for money and status. Adanna leaned in close. You wanted what I had? You're about to learn that you picked the wrong sister to cross. She walked away, leaving Nneka sobbing in the hallway. Adanna felt nothing. The girl had made her bed. Now she could lie in it. 2 weeks later, Dae-young called her. It's time. Board meeting, Monday at 10. Bring everything. Adanna barely slept that weekend. She ran through the presentation 100 times, checking every detail, every piece of evidence. She called her mother Sunday night. Mama, tomorrow everything changes. Are you ready, Ada? I don't know. What if I fail? What if they don't believe me? What if? Stop. Chioma's voice was firm. You are Okafor. We bow to no one. Your grandmother survived war, poverty, and every man who tried to silence her. You have her blood. You have her strength. Failure is not trying. You are already victorious because you refused to disappear. Adanna touched her bangle, feeling her grandmother's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. Okay, Mama. Okay. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Adanna dressed in a sharp black suit, pulled her hair into a sleek ponytail, and walked into Choi Industries headquarters like she owned it. Because after today, in a way, she would. The boardroom was massive, all dark wood and intimidation. 12 board members sat around the table, a mix of Korean executives and international investors. Sunhee sat at Dae-young's right hand, radiating confidence. Miho sat beside her, looking bored. When Adanna walked in with a team of lawyers and federal prosecutors, Sunhee's smile faltered. "Chairman, what is this?" Sunhee demanded in Korean. "Why is she here?" "This is a board meeting, not." "Ms. Okafor is here as a witness and consultant," Dae-young interrupted smoothly. "She will be presenting information critical to this company's future. I suggest you listen carefully." Adanna connected her laptop to the main screen. Her hands were steady now. This was her element. Data, evidence, truth. "Good morning," she began in Korean, then switched to English for the international members. "My name is Adanna Okafor. For 3 years, I've been married to Choi Miho. During that time, I've witnessed systematic financial fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy within this company's leadership. Today, I'm here to present evidence that will shock you. But it will also save this company from complete destruction." The first slide appeared. Bank records. Offshore accounts. Money trails that led directly to Sunhee. Over the past 8 years, Park Sun-hee has embezzled $63 million from Choi Industries. She's done this through a complex network of shell companies and falsified expense reports. Every transaction is documented here. Sunhee shot to her feet. "This is absurd. She's lying. This African woman is making up stories because her marriage failed." "Sit down," Dae-young said quietly. The command in his voice was absolute. Sunhee sat. Adanna continued. "Additionally, Mrs. Park has violated securities law by falsifying shareholder reports to hide the company's true financial status. She's accepted bribes from contractors in exchange for favorable deals. And she's used company resources to conduct personal affairs." The screen showed photos. Sunhee with various men, dates, and locations stamped clearly. The board members were rivaling in shock. The international investors looked furious. But Adanna wasn't done. Perhaps most disturbing is her conspiracy to defraud this family. "She orchestrated an affair between her son and my half-sister, with the intention of passing off the resulting child as a legitimate Choi heir." Medical records appeared on screen. As these documents show, Choi Miho is medically infertile. The pregnancy is either fabricated or the result of another relationship. Either way, Mrs. Park planned to use this child to maintain her control over the family empire. Miho had gone white as paper. Sunhee was shaking with rage. "You have no right," Sunhee hissed. "You know nothing of our ways, our family, your corruption?" Adanna's voice cut like a blade. "You're right, Mrs. Park. I don't come from a culture that honors family the way you claim to." She paused, letting the words hang. Sunhee smiled triumphantly. "In Nigeria," Adanna continued, "a mother who steals from her own family, who manipulates her son, who destroys his marriage for personal greed, we have a word for that. Age. A witch. And we cast them out. We strip them of their honor and their power because they've proven themselves unworthy of either." She turned to the board, switching back to English. "But let's speak your language. Embezzlement. Securities fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Bribery. The evidence is irrefutable. Federal prosecutors are here today because these aren't just company violations. They're federal crimes." The prosecutors stood, presenting arrest warrants. Sunhee's face crumbled as the reality hit her. Security guards moved to her sides. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Dae-young, please, we've been married for 35 years. And you've been stealing from me for 8 of them," Dae-young replied coldly. "Guards, remove her." As Sunhee was escorted out, screaming and crying, Miho tried to stand. "Father, this is a mistake, we can." "You're demoted, effective immediately," Dae-young said. "You'll be transferred to our failing branch in Busan. Fix it, or you're finished with this company." And Miho, his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried through the room. "You chose a mistress over integrity. You humiliated your wife and conspired against your own family. You're no son of mine." Miho's face went from white to red. You can't do this. I'm your heir. You were my heir. Now you're just someone who used to live in my house. Dae-young turned back to the board. I move to remove Park Sun-hee from this board and to pursue full criminal prosecution. All in favor? 11 hands went up. Only Miho abstained, too shocked to move. Motion passes. Dae-young looked at Adanna. Ms. Okafor, thank you for your service to this company. I'd like to formally offer you a position as Chief Technology Officer and a seat on this board. Your expertise in cybersecurity and international markets is exactly what we need to rebuild. The room erupted in applause. Adanna stood there, feeling tears threaten but refusing to let them fall. Not here. Not now. I accept, she said. On one condition. I'm filing for divorce from Choi Miho. The terms are non-negotiable. And I want it on record that I'm taking back my maiden name. From this day forward, I'm just Adanna Okafor. Granted, Dae-young said with the ghost of a smile. As Adanna walked out of that boardroom, past Miho's devastated face and the shocked whispers of the board, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Free. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like and comment below. Let me know what you think Adanna should do next. The weeks that followed were chaos. News of Sun-hee's arrest made headlines across Korea. Chaebol matriarch arrested for massive fraud, the paper screamed. Foreign wife exposes corruption in Korea's elite. Some outlets praised Adanna's courage. Others questioned her motives, called her a vengeful ex-wife, suggested she'd fabricated evidence. The racist comments on social media were vicious. But Adanna had spent 3 years enduring their hate. She was immune to it now. Nneka tried to visit her at the office. Security turned her away. She sent dozens of messages. Adanna blocked her number. Finally, Nneka showed up at the underground parking garage, visibly pregnant and desperate. Please, Uni, just listen to me. Adanna stopped, her hand on her car door. You have 1 minute. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was stupid and selfish and I let Mother Sun-hee manipulate me. But I loved him, I really thought. You thought what? That stealing my husband would make you special? That betraying your own sister would make you belong? Adanna's laugh was bitter. You wanted what I had, the life, the respect, the status. But you didn't want to earn it. You just wanted to take it. I know. I know and I'm sorry. But please, I'm pregnant, I'm alone, Miho won't return my calls, Sun-hee is in jail, and I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. Adanna opened her car door. You made your choices, Nneka. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted to play in the big leagues? Welcome to the consequences. What am I supposed to do? I have a baby coming. Adanna paused, looking at this girl she'd once called sister. I hope your child grows up to be nothing like you. That's the only blessing I can offer. She drove away, leaving Nneka sobbing in the parking garage. Adanna felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction. Just the hollow ache of a relationship that had died the moment Nneka had climbed into Miho's bed. 2 weeks later, news broke that Nneka had been arrested for financial fraud. She'd forged bonds in Miho's name, stolen from the family accounts she'd been given access to. The prosecution was asking for 8 years. The baby would be born in prison. Adanna felt nothing when she heard. The baobab tree didn't mourn the branches that broke themselves. The trial was swift. Sun-hee's lawyers tried every trick, but the evidence was overwhelming. She was sentenced to 15 years in maximum security prison. Her assets were seized, her reputation destroyed. The woman who'd ruled Seoul society like a queen was now just another inmate. Miho disappeared. Rumor said he'd fled to Japan, or maybe Singapore. Dae-young cut him off completely. The Busan branch closed within 6 months of his arrival. He'd proven exactly as incompetent as everyone suspected. Through it all, Adanna worked. She threw herself into transforming Choi Industries' technology infrastructure. She pitched new AI initiatives to the board. She negotiated partnerships with international firms. She was brilliant and ruthless and absolutely unstoppable. And slowly, something unexpected happened. She and Dae-young became friends. It started with late-night strategy sessions, just the two of them reviewing quarterly reports over tea. Dae-young was sharp, insightful, nothing like his cruel wife or useless son. He asked Adanna's opinion and actually listened. He challenged her ideas without dismissing them. He treated her like an equal. "You saved my company," he said one evening, 6 months after the board meeting. They were in his private office, reviewing expansion plans into African markets. "You saved yourself by having the courage to act," Adanna replied. "Most men would have protected their wife despite the evidence. Most men don't have wives like Sunhee. Our marriage was political from the start. I haven't loved her in 20 years, if I ever did." "Then why stay married?" "Convenience. Appearances. The same reasons most chaebol marriages last." He looked at her with those sharp eyes. "Why did you marry Miho?" "I thought I loved him. Or maybe I loved the idea of him, of belonging to something bigger than myself." Adanna smiled sadly. "I was young and stupid and desperate to prove I could make it in Korea." "You did make it. Just not the way you expected." "No," Adanna agreed. "Not at all the way I expected." There was a charged silence. Then Dae-young said quietly, "My mother would have liked you. She always said the strongest trees grow in the harshest soil." "Your mother was a politician. Mine is a professor. They'd probably argue philosophy all day." Dae-young laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "I'd pay to see that." Their eyes met across the desk. Something shifted in that moment, something Adanna couldn't name but felt in her bones. This man had seen her at her lowest and chosen to lift her up. He'd believed her when no one else would. He'd given her power when others tried to take it away. "I should go," Adanna said, suddenly flustered. "Tomorrow's the press conference for the African expansion." "Adanna." Dae-young stood. "Thank you. For not giving up on everything I built." "Thank you," she replied softly, "for seeing me when everyone else tried to make me invisible." She left before either of them could say anything else they might regret. But the feeling stayed with her. The awareness that something was building between them, something complicated and impossible and maybe inevitable. 3 months later, Dae-young filed for divorce from Sunhee on grounds of fraud and abandonment. It was finalized within weeks. She was in prison, she had no grounds to contest. The media went wild with speculation. Was he dating someone? Would he remarry? Who would become the new Choi matriarch? Adanna tried to ignore the gossip. She focused on work, on building Nextech into a global powerhouse. She video called her mother weekly, drawing strength from Chioma's wisdom and warmth. "You sound happy, Ada," Chioma said one Sunday morning. "Really happy, not just pretending." "I am, Mama. For the first time since I came to Seoul, I feel like myself again." "That's my daughter." The baobab standing tall. Chioma paused. "When will you come home? Your cousins miss you." "I miss you." "Soon, Mama. I promise. There are just a few more things I need to finish here." One of those things arrived on a Thursday evening. Dae-young asked her to dinner at a private Korean restaurant, the kind where businessmen made deals over soju and samgyeopsal. But when Adanna arrived, the room was empty except for him. "I thought we were meeting with the Singapore investors," she said, confused. "I lied." Dae-young gestured to the seat across from him. "I wanted to talk to you. Alone." Adanna sat, her heart suddenly racing. "About what?" "About us." He poured them both soju. "I'm 65 years old. I've spent my life building an empire, and I nearly lost it to greed and betrayal. You saved it. More than that, you reminded me what integrity looks like." "Dae-young." Let me finish. He took a breath. For 35 years, I was married to a woman I didn't respect. I stayed out of duty, out of tradition, out of weakness. And it nearly destroyed everything I care about. He looked at her directly. Then you walked into my life. Brilliant, brave, absolutely unstoppable. You fought for what was right when everyone told you to be silent. You stood alone against an entire family and won. I didn't stand alone, Adanna said quietly. You stood with me. Because you reminded me who I used to be. Before I let fear and tradition make me small. Dae-young reached across the table, not quite touching her hand but close enough that she could feel the warmth. I know this is unconventional. I know people will talk. I know I'm old enough to be. Don't, Adanna interrupted. Don't reduce this to age. If you have something to say it directly. He smiled at that, the real smile she'd come to treasure. I want you, Adanna Okafor. Not as my employee. Not as my ally. As my partner. In everything. I want to build something new with you. Not the Choi dynasty of corruption and lies. Something better. Something worthy of your brilliance. Adanna's breath caught. She looked at this man who'd saved her when she needed saving, who'd given her power when others tried to destroy her. He wasn't perfect. He was complicated, sometimes cold, burdened by decades of regrets. But he saw her. Really saw her. People will say I'm using you, she said finally. That I manipulated you, that I destroyed your family to steal your fortune. Let them talk. I stopped caring about gossip decades ago. Your family. My family is a wasteland of my own making. My wife is in prison. My son is in exile. I have no one left except the empire I built. He finally took her hand. Unless you say yes. Adanna thought of the girl she'd been 3 years ago, desperate to belong, willing to shrink herself to fit into their world. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who'd walked through fire and emerged stronger. I have conditions, she said. Name them. Our wedding, when and if it happens, I wear both. Korean hanbok and Nigerian iro and buba. No compromises. I won't erase half of myself to make anyone comfortable. I wouldn't want you to. What else? My company stays independent. I'm not some trophy wife playing at business. Next Tech is mine. Agreed. Though I'd argue Choi Industries is lucky to partner with you, not the other way around. And, Adanna took a shaky breath. I need time. I need to be sure this is real, that we're not just two broken people clinging to each other. Dae-young squeeze. Her hand gently. Take all the time you need. I've waited 65 years to meet someone like you. I can wait a little longer. They sat there, hands intertwined, the future stretching before them like an unwritten story. It wouldn't be easy. The media would crucify them. Society would never accept a black African woman as the new Choi matriarch. But Adanna had learned that the opinions of small people didn't matter. She touched her grandmother's bangle with her free hand. The baobab never breaks. It just grows deeper roots. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. 1 year later, Adanna Okafor married Choi Dae-young in a ceremony that made international headlines. She wore both, a stunning white Korean hanbok with a Nigerian iro and buba over it, royal blue oso-oak with gold threading that caught the light like fire. Her geli was wrapped high and proud, her natural hair oiled and gleaming. She looked like a queen from 2 worlds. The wedding was attended by dignitaries from 20 countries, tech industry leaders, and her entire family from Lagos. Her mother cried through the whole ceremony. Her cousins cheered when Dae-young kissed his bride. The media lost their minds. Conservative outlets called it a disgrace. Progressive ones celebrated it as a new Korea. Adanna ignored all of them. She'd stopped performing for other people's expectations. At the reception, she gave a speech that would be quoted for years. 3 years ago, I came to this country as a bride full of hope. I was told to be smaller, quieter, less African, less ambitious, less myself. I tried. I failed. And in that failure, I found my strength. She looked at Dae-young, standing beside her with unmistakable pride. Today, I stand before you as the wife of Choi Dae-young and the CEO of Next Tech Solutions. I am Nigerian and Korean. I am traditional and revolutionary. I am everything they told me I couldn't be. She raised her glass. To everyone who tried to break me, thank you. You taught me that the baobab never breaks. It just grows stronger. The applause was deafening. Later that night, as they danced alone in the empty ballroom, Dae-young whispered, "No regrets?" "Not a single one," Adanna replied. And she meant it. The road had been brutal. She'd lost her first marriage, her sister, 3 years of her life. But she'd gained something infinitely more valuable, herself. Her power. Her voice. Her future. 5 years after that wedding, Adanna stood in the headquarters of Baobab Tech, the company she'd founded to build technological bridges between Africa and Asia. She was pregnant with their second child, her daughter Ari playing in the corner of her office. The company was valued at $3 billion. She'd just been named to Forbes' Most Powerful Women list. Her phone rang. Her mother, calling from Lagos. "Ada M., I saw your interview on CNN. You were magnificent." "Thank you, Mama. Your grandmother would be so proud. You did exactly what she always said, you grew roots so deep that no storm could move you." Adanna touched the wooden bangle, worn smooth from years of wear. "I miss her, Mama. She's with you. In every decision you make. In every battle you win." Chioma's voice grew thick with emotion. "You took everything they tried to use against you, your skin, your culture, your strength, and you made them your weapons. You didn't just survive, Omomi. You conquered." After the call ended, Adanna stood at her office window, looking out at Seoul's skyline. The city that had tried to destroy her was now the city she'd reshaped. Choi Industries thrived under Dae-young's leadership and her technological innovations. Baobab Tech employed thousands across 3 continents. She'd recently established a scholarship fund for African women in STEM, ensuring that the next generation wouldn't have to fight as hard as she had. She'd won. Not just against Sun Hee or Miho or the family that tried to erase her. She'd won against every system, every prejudice, every voice that said she was too black, too foreign, too ambitious, too much. She turned to see Dae-young entering her office, Ari running to hug his legs. He looked at Adanna with the expression she'd come to treasure, respect, love, and absolute partnership. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Yes," Adanna said, gathering her daughter into her arms. "Let's go home." As they left together, Adanna thought about the girl she'd been 7 years ago, broken and crying in an empty penthouse. If she could go back, she'd tell that girl to hold on. To trust in her grandmother's wisdom. To remember that the baobab never breaks. She'd tell her that pain is temporary, but power is forever. And most importantly, she'd tell her that sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up being the ones who set you free. Because freedom isn't about belonging to a place or a family or a name. Freedom is knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it. Adanna Okafor was free. And she was just getting started. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about resilience and revenge, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me what part resonated most with you. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Adanna's, stories of women who refuse to be erased, they need to be told. They need to be celebrated. They need to reach the people who are fighting their own battles, wondering if they're strong enough to survive. You are. I promise you are. The baobab never breaks. It just grows deeper roots and reaches higher toward the sky. Remember that. And thank you for being here.